A saddle maker friend that he said an old man told him one time, if it's hard, you're doing it wrong. He was talking about saddle making, but then we talked about it more, and that pretty well applies to all of life.
Welcome back to Cowgirl Beyond, the official podcast of the National Cowgirl Museum and Hall of Fame, where we go beyond the exhibits to share the untold stories of women shaping the West. In today's episode, we're sitting down with master saddle maker Nancy Martiny, a true artisan of the American West. From a ranch in May, Idaho, Nancy has spent more than 3 decades crafting saddles that are as functional as they are beautiful. Her work is rooted in tradition, mentorship, and the belief that true craftsmanship takes time, heart, and a steady hand. We'll talk about how she got her start as a young girl carving leather alongside her father, how mentorship from the legendary Dale Harwood shaped her path, and what it means to be one of the few women mastering a trade long dominated by men. We'll also dive into her role as a mentor herself, passing down the art of saddle making through her work with Art of the Cowgirl. So settle in and join us for a conversation about craftsmanship, legacy, and the women keeping the Western tradition alive. This is Cowgirl Beyond with Nancy Martiny. Well, let's go to the beginning of it all. You started hand tooling, watching your dad as a freshman in high school, and that was coming from an admiration that you had for your father's work. Tell me about how that really initiated and how you really started thinking about grabbing the tools yourself and saying, I want to do this as well.
Do you want the long version or the short one?
Whatever you want to tell us. We've got plenty of time.
So my dad had made me a belt when I was a little kid when he was tooling. And somewhere along the way, that belt got misplaced, lost. I thought I'd lost it. And I always wanted another belt. Well, he was busy ranching and, full-time. He didn't do leather carving anymore.
Okay.
And we ended up with a neighbor that got in a plane crash and had one bad leg. Well, he broke the good leg, so he couldn't go anywhere. And he got to talking to my dad. This guy was a cowboy. And Dad said that he would help him get started tooling leather. So he had something to do instead of just sitting there. Yeah. So I said, well, I want to learn too. So that's kind of how I got my start.
Okay.
And, being 15 and all my friends are the cowboy kids. Well, I wanted a belt with my name on it because I never did find that belt. So that's how I got started, Dad. I have a big old coarse flower on my bench, the very first thing I ever tooled.
Wow.
And then I tooled that belt. And kind of how my saddle business is based. Well, my friends saw that belt. Well, they wanted a belt. So I spent the first, 10 years anyway, building belts, going through the books and everything back then. I used pre-made patterns. I took the patterns out. Al Stolman was the basis and Tandy Leather was our resource. So I'd study them books and tool those patterns and try to get as good as I could. And for a long time, I didn't know I had the capability to draw the designs.
Wow.
And we got into the 90s, and a man named Clinton Fay from Sheridan, Wyoming, wrote a book about how to carve Sheridan style. And that's a very distinctive style to the area of Sheridan, Wyoming with King saddlery. So that opened up a whole new world.
Yeah.
And so I started going to these classes and bought the book and figuring out how to draw my own designs. So I also, in 87 is when I started building saddles. So all I knew how to do was to carve when I built my first saddle. And that first build was overwhelming because there's so much to it. But I carved a little on it, and I felt good about that because I couldn't really draw my designs very good, but I could carve. And so that kind of gave me a little hope to go into the next saddle, that if I could just keep carving on them a little bit and just keep repeating the steps I knew you needed, that I could make a go of it and get some saddles built.
Well, you definitely did. And look at you now. You have a 6-year waiting list.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's impressive. Well, you were mentored by the legendary saddle maker Dale Harwood. And throughout your process of learning from him, what are the lessons that stuck the most from him to you now until the day that you continue to make saddles?
It was Dale. It was always about to do clean work and to just keep refining your work and keep it clean. Do the things. Everything has to be exact because these are going on a horse that's working.
Yeah.
And if you set the rigging off a little and that thing pulls off, it's always the saddle maker's fault, even if it isn't, So that was one of the things Dale, and I used to quote Dale a lot and probably still do, but he would say, don't be fussy, not critical. And that meant take time and do the work right, and then you don't have to be regretting that you did something wrong.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it sounds like as a saddle maker, like you said, you have a big responsibility for the people who use them.
Yes.
So, you've lived and you've worked on your family's ranch that you guys have had for over 120 years. How do you feel working the ranch and living the landscape has influenced your approach to your craftsmanship?
Well, I'll try not to get on my soapbox too much here, but people talk about, you can take someone and teach them to build a saddle that isn't a cowboy.
Yeah.
But boy, to me, if you ranch, you have the advantage because you know where the rope strap needs to be and why it needs to be there and what rigging is going to work best for the type of country you live in and all those little details that if you're not actually using the product, you wouldn't understand that.
Yeah. The ins and outs of it all.
Yep.
It's so interesting when I was reading these articles that have been written on you, even by the New York Times, which is impressive. I mean, it's so beautiful to see how they followed you along in your shop and the visuals that they did. One of the things that they mentioned was how you just mentioned you build saddles according to certain regions and disciplines. And you've been able to learn how all of these individuals have certain needs.
Right.
And you've been able to meet all of them. Tell me a little bit about how that process has been like. You come from Idaho and you're coming from a roping discipline and you also come from a ranching lifestyle. So how have you been able to learn the different necessities that all these individuals have needed in their saddles?
Well, after I said that, I guess I kind of back up and say I'm pretty specialized in what I build. Yeah. And I say it pretty broadly. I say I build cowboy saddles.
Yeah.
Well, cowboys, and I build saddles for guys in Nevada and in the West, but most of my customers are repeat customers. So I'm going to know what I did for them the first time, what worked for them, what they might need to change, if they're riding a different type of horse now, a different build of horse than they were when they ordered their first one.
Yeah.
So I don't build barrel saddles. I don't build bronc saddles. I don't really build arena saddles. I don't build cutting boards. I build saddles. I'm not saying you couldn't go to town and rope on my saddle, but overall it's built to be comfortable for the horse and comfortable for the rider on a long day.
Yeah. Well, that sounds like a perfect balance, which seems like that's what you've been able to accomplish. And you must really know the stories of all the people that you create for. It sounds like you must really know what they do and the horses they ride, and you get to maybe be more involved in the process than other artisans.
I generally know my customers. And because of the repeat customer, I've got guys that have got 5, 6, 7 of my saddles over the years. So, there's kind of a saying, and I say, I only build saddles for my friends. I'm not going to build a saddle for somebody if we don't see eye to eye.
Yeah.
And people have asked me for odd things, and maybe they want me to carve something that I don't want to carve. I just tell them no.
Yeah.
But they know what they can get from me, and I know what they need.
Yeah. It's a mutual relationship, it sounds like.
Yep.
Yeah. That's beautiful. What has actually been your favorite saddle or favorite style that you've carved on a saddle?
So I admit I had like 2 or 3 orders there when I was getting close to the 500 number.
Wow.
And I thought, now I know I got a full floral coming up. And this guy, he had gotten one saddle from me before that was a fully carved saddle. And I consider this guy a really good hand in our country. And his number was coming up again. So I just shuffled and made his 500. And I was really pleased with how that saddle came out. It kind of shows everything all together of what I want my saddles to look like for balance. And then, of course, it was fully carved. So
that's beautiful. Yeah. So you just mentioned that you reached your 500 saddle. Do you know approximately how many you're at since then?
Let's say about 515. Wow. I do number them all.
Yeah.
And one reason I'm at 6 years now, I used to produce 20 to 24 saddles a year, 20 years ago.
Yeah.
So I've slowed down. I've kind of I used to always work on 2 or maybe 3 at a time. I generally work on 1 at a time and do a lot of little stuff. It's to the point, and men will say this too, you got to kind of preserve your hands at this stage of the game. So work smarter, not harder.
Yeah, most definitely. Deal. Most definitely. And, with that going hand in hand, as a rancher, as a mentor, as an artisan, as a business owner, when did you feel in your life that you needed to be able to balance your work and your life responsibilities? And how did you manage all of that? And realizing, I have to take care of my one tool that matters the most, which are your hands.
Yeah, I don't know.
Hard question.
I think women especially have more freedom now to do more things that they're interested in.
Yeah.
But most women, if they're a little traditional still, they want to get married, they want to have kids. And so you just have to figure out how to juggle all those things and make it work. I know my kids were little when I started building saddles, and they'll tell you, they used to have to leave the house when I was shaping the seat into a saddle. Wow. It was pretty stressful, for a couple hours there. But I tooled leather from all of them before they were born. So they've all grown up with it and learned to roll with it. And I can probably balance my time a lot better now that we do less, because we just have the ranch and just my husband and I now, and we don't do the rodeo. We don't have stock anymore, rodeo stock. So I used to have to juggle my weekends for that. And so I spend a lot of time in that shop, and I still like it. I still crave more knowledge and to get better.
Wow, that's amazing. Well, and all of the knowledge that you've learned over the decades that you've been doing this, you've now been applying in mentorship, and you've been teaching other people through Art of the Cowgirl. So tell us a little bit about what that process has been like and how it changed your relationship with mentoring and reaching other women artisans.
So when Tammy started Art of the Cowgirl, I was probably still right on the edge of thinking that I was the student still learning and that I didn't know enough to teach someone else.
Yeah.
And then I kind of figured out I've been doing this a long time. I could look back at an older saddle and realize it's okay. You know these things enough to tell someone else. And then once I started teaching, I realized teaching makes you verbalize and figure out how you actually are, because you get to doing things and it's second nature to you. Yeah. Well, if someone else doesn't know, you have to figure out how to express that to them in a way they can understand. So it's really made me a better craftsman, helped me articulate what I was doing. And I always tell them, like this, we're doing this, and this is why.
Yeah.
I always justify what I'm doing because I believe in the way that I do it, and 99% of it's the way Dale taught me, other than the few things I've had to modify just for my own physical limitations. But the art of the cowgirl has really helped me with understanding what I'm doing and how to express that.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And seeing that relationship that you have with them, and even I've seen that you've made saddles that you guys make for these events, and you do the logo and the brands, and it's all so beautiful. It's a beautiful project in general, being able to work with all of those women. And I know earlier you mentioned that you were so used to being around the men that when you started working with the women, you were like, wow, these women are actually, you know, they're very nice, and there's so much to learn from each other. So it seems like even for you, that kind of was a process in itself, right?
It really was. And there's a lot of women, I say craftsmen, because you're building that's the word.
Yeah.
That's the word
You're a
that
craftsman.
describes it. But there's silversmiths, hat makers, bit and spur makers that are women. And we, like myself, there's other women saddle makers out there, but we haven't been brought to the forefront too much. We're still out there just kind of working in our own shops and not getting noticed, not that we ask for it. But with this event, it's really brought more of the women out of the woodwork, so to speak.
Yeah, most definitely. Well, what do you hope for the future of all those artisans, craftswomen, saddle makers? Where do you see things going in the future, and what do you hope for that future?
You know, it makes me sound old, but I really hope that this helps to keep the traditions going.
Yeah.
That was Tammy's goal, is to showcase women, but also to keep all these skills going on to the next generations.
Yeah.
I don't want to make it sound like I've never helped men, because I do. I've helped a few over the years before Out of the Cowgirl, and if a man, I don't think it matters if you're a man or a woman. You just need to be open to learning.
Yeah.
And then apply what you learn and have the work ethic you can succeed at anything if you just work at it.
Yeah, most definitely. Well, it definitely is a dying art, I think, for a lot of artisans and a lot of the people who work in, the specific industries that keep alive the Western lifestyle. There's a lot of dying arts, and it's really important that people get involved. So what you're doing to continue that is powerful, because, thanks to women like you, those legacies are going to continue on, and that work is going to continue on. So that's admirable. And that's one of the reasons why you're here today, of many other reasons, a long list. What do you feel like the relationship is right now between artisans and saddle makers? Is there a camaraderie? Do you feel it's competitive? I noticed just from everybody talking today, there's sometimes you can stop somebody and say hi, and people recognize each other. Do you guys come to each other for advice? What is this relationship like?
From where I stand, everybody I visit, so there's an organization called the TCA, the Traditional Cowboy Arts Association, and one of those guys lives about 50 miles from me, Kerry Schwartz. I'm sure it drives his wife crazy when I show up, because we're just blah, 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 all the time about building saddles.
Yeah.
I went to a meeting this last spring with them, and nobody hides anything. Everybody has little gimmicks here and there that they do, and everybody shared. I think if you're still enthused about what you do, you don't hide.
Yeah.
And nobody wants to be left behind. If there's something new that works good, they want to be in on it, because they want to be the best they can be. So the people that I associate with, that's everybody's attitude. Everybody just wants to get better and to help others get better.
Yeah. Well, I think that's going to be really important in how the future of all of this evolves. And that's going to be what keeps it alive, is how that environment, around everybody evolves and continues to live on. So that's amazing that's how it really is. While you're, I'm sure leather work while you're working is, it requires so much patience and persistence. You've talked about a saddle taking up to 50 to 60 hours to make. And I wanted to know, what are some of the most important lessons that you've learned from being a saddle maker? And specifically, how do you feel we can apply all of those to our normal lives?
So I have a saddle maker friend that he said an old man told him one time, if it's hard, you're doing it wrong. And I thought, he was talking about saddle making, but then we talked about it more, and that pretty well applies to all of life.
Yeah.
That if it's difficult, you're not doing it right, figure out the right way to do it, or figure out the right way for you to do it. Which, when you think that applies to everything. You might not do it exactly how you were showed, but you do it the way that you can get it done.
That's amazing. I love that. That is so true, because it even goes back to the topic simply of when you do what you love, it's not work.
Right.
It's not your job. You're doing what you love every day, and you wake up and you love doing it, and you do it with heart. So, Nancy, has there ever been a moment as you're drawing a design and you're thinking about what a saddle's going to look like, that you end up with a drawing, and then as you're making the carving, it goes completely different?
Well, ideally, you have everything worked out before you put the knife to the leather.
Yeah.
But, and I've struggled a lot. It's been, I don't know, I say a few years. It's probably been more than a few that I've kind of got that good feel about drawing. But I was mentioning that my friend Carrie Schwartz, who's a saddle maker, he's put a lot of thought into the design. And he talks about respecting the space. So if you draw out, and I'm big on paper, drawing with pencil and paper, where some people will design right on the leather. I don't really visualize it first. I kind of let the parts show me where they need to be in the area. And so it's about, once I start, then I can create a flow from that area and let that design just kind of roll out in front of me.
Wow, that's impressive. How do you balance that that need that you've accomplished of utility and beauty in all of your designs and everything you create?
Oh, well, for me, it's always about utility first. I don't do very much that's just artwork.
Yeah.
It's all going to be functional. It's going to be a headstall, a pair of chaps. I do a few purses. I don't do too much smaller things like earrings or, I don't know. I do belts. I don't mind belts. But on a saddle, it needs to... Each part is going to fit for a specific reason where it's at. So the design needs to, again, honor the space. So you have that design that it all flows. It's real important that everything flows together. For myself, I want it to go the same direction as the horse's hair grows. So if I'm doing a basket stamp, which is a geometric stamp, I want that on an angle that it goes the same direction as the horse's hair, which is back, as opposed to going forward. To me, that's going against the growth of the hair. Doesn't make sense in my mind.
Wow.
So that's kind of how I think.
Is there any other little details or processes that you use that's so interesting to me, that, it's so detailed? And I believe that's what makes things beautiful, is when there's that fluidity and there's a difference between something that looks forced and something that goes with what it's being used for. Is there anything else you do in your processes that's similar to that?
Well, the shape of the skirts, depending on, and that's a customer preference if they want like a full square skirt or rounded, or a butterfly skirt, which is a deeper rounded. You want it all to make sense to your eye. Kind of going back to the carving, it's the same with the cut and the shape of the parts of the saddle. Yeah. You don't want it to look out of proportion. You don't want one part to grab your eye. You want everything to flow together so it all balances and is pleasing to the eye, and should be balanced on the horse at the same time.
Wow, that's amazing. I have only seen pictures of the saddles in studio or individually on their own, but I would love to see one of those saddles and a picture of it on a horse that's made for that specific horse, because I can't imagine that's probably something that, like I mentioned, it's made to all the needs that the person needs, and it has all that fluidity, which is quite impressive. It's always in the details. Do you have any advice to any young women or anybody who are wanting to enter into this space and want to learn, or are in the middle of their journey, have reached a crossroad, and they want to continue doing this work? Any advice for them?
Ooh, lots. But with the internet, there is a tendency, and I've called this the McDonald's mentality for years. Everybody just wants to drive through and grab their food and go on. Don't get in a hurry. No baby ever jumped up and went to running. They had to crawl and then walk. So I recommend don't start your leather journey trying to build a saddle. Start somewhere like building belts or building shafts, building little things, especially if you want to carve. But learn how to handle the leather. Learn what happens when you get it wet. Learn what happens when it dries out before you're done working. Besides the substantial money investment, your time is valuable, and you can't afford to waste your time or other people's time or money. So don't get in a hurry. Put as many hours into it as you can. Yeah. If you can only do it at nights or mornings or whenever you can work, but put the time in. And let the leather will teach you more than it's kind of like here a couple of years ago, I realized that it's just like horsemanship. You can go to a clinic and somebody can explain how they're doing it and talk about feel. They can explain that to you, but you got to learn it yourself. You have to do the hands-on. Hopefully someday the light comes on and a person, I understand what they were saying. Or you go to 3 different people and the third one finally says the same thing in a different way, and it's like, that's what that first guy was talking about. It's just a matter of devoting yourself to it, and then once you learn the basics, then put yourself into it. Put your own mark on it.
Yeah. Wow, it's so impressive. I mean, I'm obviously not a leather maker, and it interests me a lot. But it's so interesting hearing everything that you've shown us and taught us in lessons, and how similar it is to even just riding a horse simply. As we always say, a horse will teach you more than you can teach a horse. So it's so interesting to see the parallels between all of the things that we do and how we can apply it in all of our different industries, which I think is the most important thing that we can all get out of this. So thank you, Nancy.
You bet.
Thank you for sharing that with us. From today and everything you've lived, what does it mean for you and your work to be recognized by the Cowgirl Museum?
I still don't have much grasp of this, but this is such an honor, and I've pretty well been buried in my work for a long time until the Art of the Cowgirl and kind of drew me out a little bit. I have to give credit to Natalie McFarland because she was the first one that interviewed me at that first Art of the Cowgirl. And I kind of reverted back to my old really shy ways, and I was petrified to having the camera on me. And then I realized this is a really nice person in front of me, and she's only wants good things for me. And then the next year she interviewed me and I talked her leg off. But that's where I kind of I realized you have something to contribute here and people can benefit. So just try to give them what you can give them.
Yeah, most definitely. I think it's so, I don't even have a word for it, but it's mind-boggling to me that, you are in your shop on your own, and then you come out and you're such an incredible person and you do such amazing work. And we've noticed with all of the inductees that you guys have a very similar message in that you guys all have just lived your lives. That's really all what you guys have done. And you've done it with so much heart and with so much passion that it's led you to being inducted into the Cowgirl Hall of Fame, which is impressive. And it's honorable. And quite frankly, I know we're all so proud to have received you today. So thank you so much, Nancy. I want to say thank you for taking the time with me. Thank you for all of the lessons you've taught us. Your speech was incredible. And you are an incredible human being, and you definitely have so much to contribute to everybody. There's going to be a lot of people watching this that are going to learn so much. So it is an honor.
I appreciate that so much. And it's pretty amazing when you get out of the house and get off the ranch, and come to town and to find out that people are so kind and that they want to include you in their group. And now I talked with a couple of the other inductees, and it's like, wow, the pressure's off of us. We'll come back next year and we'll help. We'll be part of the team. So that's a really special deal.
So it's quite beautiful. And I'm so glad that you made it out here with us and you got on that stage.
I got up there, and I'll say there's a common bond with whatever color horse you ride, whatever cowgirl, however you call it, there's a common bond here. And it's a really special deal.
Most definitely. Well, thank you, Nancy.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for being on Cowgirl Beyond.
Absolutely.
I'm going to be in the Hall of Fame, and it just took some time to say, you worked very hard for this, Carol. Not that you planned it. It wasn't a goal like, hey, I'm going to be in the Hall of Fame someday. No, I just lived life to the best I could.
Yeah.
And this is an explanation point to my career. It's like a whole explanation thing. Yeah, done.
I think we might need tissues.